There's nothing to see here.
Super high energy. All right, cool. We're on another one. This one's late, as they always are. They're always late. But I felt like I really needed to get something out there, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm recording with, as always, suboptimal quality of audio. And I say that because I'm recording just straight up with my internal iPhone microphone. And it's embarrassing. I lost my little dongle thing that would allow me to plug in my Blue Snowball. And if I had my Blue Snowball, it would be just unbelievably great today. I have a lot of crap going on. Anyway, I want to get right into it. I don't want to bore anyone with anything. I want to start talking about something that I learned about today, or not today, this last week. It's called Greek fire. Greek fire, and I'm going to read this straight from the Wikipedia because I want people. This is like I said not from the start, but I said from a few episodes ago that I want this podcast to be just a conglomeration of all the things that I learn that could just be disseminated into knowledge that other people can gain from. And that's what this is going to be. So, reading straight from and there's also a few other things, but I'll get into that. Let's get into it. Greek fire was an incendiary weapon used by the Eastern Roman Empire beginning in 672 Common Era C, beginning C, whatever. Used to set fire to enemy ships. It consisted of a combustible compound emitted by a flame-throwing weapon. Some historians believe it could be ignited on contact with water. It was probably based on naphtha and quicklime. The Byzantines typically used it in naval battles to great effect, as it could continue burning while floating on water. The technology advantage it provided was responsible for many key Byzantine military victories, most notably the salvation of Constantinople from the First and Second Arab sieges, thus securing the empire's survival. So I was learning about this Greek fire from a podcast I was listening to. I think it was a Joe Rogan episode. It was a Joe Rogan episode with who's that guy? Not Theo Vaughn. There's a dude that he always has on, Eddie Bravo. And Eddie Bravo was talking about things that had to do with, I think it was Eddie Bravo. Shoot, I might be misquoting this. I think he was talking about a bunch of just lost technology that was somehow related to the Catholic Church. And somehow the conversation got up to the topic of Greek fire and how Greek fire is something that no one understands, but it's well documented as far as something that actually existed, but just we don't know anything about. We don't know how it was used and how it was made, but it's knowledge that was lost in the past. No, I think this was with George St. Pierre. That's who it was. They were talking about ancient technology, ancient civilizations. Perfect. George St. Pierre, the MMA fighter. I think he was an MMA fighter. So they were talking about Greek fire. And just to think, I've had... Is my mic cute? It's my mic? Oh, sick! Okay. I've been having trouble with my audio quality and where exactly it's coming from. My phone is telling me that the source of audio is from my iPhone, but it's actually from the headphones. So anyway, back to my point. What was I saying? Yes. No. What was I saying? Okay, I remember. So I've had a theory for a long time that there's been past civilizations that have technology that we just assume that because we assume that these past civilizations have not advanced to our level of technology because if you believe that, then that means we are not as smart as we once were. We're not the smartest we've ever been. And evolution as far as mental capacity is kind of a lie. And I just mean it in this way because I'm kind of oversimplifying things because I have a certain understanding that I expect other people to have as well, but it's not that way. If you ascribe to the notion that evolution is something that, and it's not that, if you ascribe, no, it's something that you basically get taught and you just choose to understand that one versus someone else who was taught to believe something else. But if you were raised to believe that evolution is the way that humans have become who they are and what they are, then you implicitly agree to the notion that in the past, we were not even close to as technologically advanced as we are now because there's no evidence of it as far as what we can uncover and as far as our preconceived notions of what the Earth was like before. The problem with that theory is that we only know as much as we've uncovered, which we've uncovered a good amount, But everything that we've uncovered is interpreted through the lens of human evolution and the fact that we that we were not ever as advanced as we are now. So everything starts compounding. Now, the problem with this is that once you uncover something that is beyond your explanation reasoning as to how someone could have made a stride this far technologically, it boggles the brain and it gets swept under the rug, and then Ancient Aliens takes over on the History Channel and it's just lost to zoology or who knows what, a kind of pseudoscience. So, having said all that, lithium. Lithium is what I think was the major and main form of, or the chemical that was used in Greek fire. I think Greek fire was used by lithium was the combustible. Historians believe that it was naphtha and quicklime. I disagree. I think it was lithium. I think it was lithium for this reason. I think it was lithium because lithium cannot be put out with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of water. And this was used very effectively to shoot at enemy ships. Now, the drawings and everything else is just like, well, there's that. We can look at these drawings and say, that's exactly what it was. I disagree. I think it was lithium. That's my own opinion. That's my own assumption. That's my own delusion, whatever you want to call it. But I'm sticking to it for now. And I want everyone else who's anyone interested in ancient lost knowledge that's been lost to the past, whatever, to look into Greek fire and make your own conclusions. But there's that. Moving on. There is a thing called the Carrington event. The Carrington event was, and I'm reading from the Wikipedia again. I'm learning about these things and I go to Wikipedia, so I have one source of knowledge base that I can go to if there is. I'm probably going to start using Everpedia because it's an open source, not run by Wikipedia version of Wikipedia. It's a fork that was forked beforehand. Anyway. The Carrington event was the most intense geomagnetic storm in recorded history, peaking from 1 to 2 September 1st to peaking from 1 to 2. I don't know. Okay. Solar cycle? I don't understand. I'm just going to read it verbatim, and if it doesn't make sense because of the way I'm reading it, then it doesn't make sense. Sorry. Peaking from 1 to 2 September 1859 during solar cycle 10. It created strong auroral displays that were reported globally and caused sparking and even fires in multiple telegraph stations. The geomagnetic storm was most likely the result of coronal mass ejection, or CME, from the sun colliding with Earth's magnetosphere. This is all in scientific jargon. The magnetic storm was associated with a very bright solar flare on the 1st of September in 1859. It was observed and recorded independently by British astronomers Richard Christopher Carrington and Richard Hodgson. The first records of a solar flare. A geomagnetic storm of this magnitude occurring today would cause widespread electrical disruptions, blackouts, and damage due to extended outages of the electrical power grid. I titled this one, because this is a little bit of history that needs to be taught, I titled this one, How Could Another Mass Extinction Event Occur? And I believe this is one example. Now, I brought up in another podcast episode previous that if plastics, there is a new enzyme that has been either created or discovered then created based on the discovery and synthesized, that it is an enzyme that breaks down plastics. And this breakdown of plastics would cause a mass extinction event because people would not be able to cope with the massive amount of plastic that would just disintegrate in front of their very eyes. Now, I understand it doesn't happen within a split second, but it is a slow and gradual, and there is no stopping it once it gets released, as far as if the people releasing it were effective in the release of it. Now, that is one thing that could cause a mass extinction event because people, and I had a conversation with a coworker about this, saying, hey, if plastic was to start just breaking down because this enzyme would break down plastics to its base chemicals, what would you do? You would not be able to survive, essentially, because your car wouldn't work anymore. Well, that's all right because I could just hike into the woods. Well, the polymers holding your backpack together would fall apart. No, it's fine because I have all leather. Okay, the soles of your shoes, no, my shoes are made of all organic materials. Okay, how would you survive? How would you destroy an animal? How would you survive without having the conveniences of your bottled water and the conveniences that we have? You may be able to do it for a while, but then you'd still try to rely on some previous knowledge you may have gotten from the internet. You can't access the internet anymore because the plastics in your phone that are keeping things together are breaking down. So the internet is gone. Do you know how to survive it? And yeah, I have a dog. I can kill an animal. How many animals can you kill? Have you hunted before? It's not as easy as you say. How can you store these things? Do we have this basic understanding of how to survive in the woods? No. Half of us don't. And the ones that do are the ones that will be the saviors of humanity simply by reproduction by the people who can do it. Because everyone else will die off. Not that they're going to be the saviors and teach everyone everything, because no one's that altruistic. You care about yourself and your family. Once you get them together, then you can start taking care of others. But then that's just one mass extinction event that could occur if that is some bioterrorist comes through and decides to release this enzyme on the world. What's next? Here's another one that could happen. Let's say a solar flare like this just disrupts everything as far as we understand how solar flares work. This could disrupt everything. Every piece of technology could burn up in our hands because of this electromagnetic radiation that would just destroy everything. And then once it does, what do? Now, there's obviously safeguards that are being taken in multiple places that have lots of infrastructure that could not actually put up with that kind of electromagnetic radiation. But the majority of people would die because this would actually impact everything from cell phones, which you need for emergency services, to standard house phones that still communicate through a central point of communication to emergency service vehicles. And then just the power grid itself wouldn't be able to handle it. Then that would put us out of commission. Then everything in convenience stores would probably run out of their generators' power after a few months. Then hopefully the National Guard or some government organization that I hate so much, but would probably be our only saving grace for the people who, like me, don't understand how to live off the land just yet, because I'm still trying to learn actively, daily, trying to learn how to live off the land more and more, making community out here in eastern Washington eastern Washington. I'm trying to make friends, trying to make community, and preventing something from terrorizing me in the future. But there's something which leads me on to my next point. Gasifiers. Does anyone here listening to the TheClaudcast today know what a gasifier is? If you don't, well, good news for you. I have something for you to listen to.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's safe to say that we live in uncertain times, especially now more than ever. I'm going to show you how you can build a device that powers a generator or a car or any kind of internal combustion engine using nothing more than wood scraps, paper, coal, whatever you can burn that's organic. And that device is called a wood gasifier. This one is a little bit different design than one you may have seen previously on my channel. That was a downdraft gasifier. This is an entirely new version called a crossdraft gasifier. And most importantly, in an effort to make these wood gasifiers and the knowledge of how to build them more accessible to people who probably need them most, for example, those that are off-grid or those who want to build one of these in a world where electricity may not be available. Again, this is just a preparation mindset, no implications, but if you're here watching this video, I think you know what I mean. But anyway, in the interest of making this more accessible, this unit was built with nothing more than an angle grinder and a hand drill and parts that I can find lying around, and so can you.
And that was a clip from the Random YouTube channel, RANDOMN, and I think that's short for randomonium. But that was a clip from that YouTube channel. There's a video, it's going to be linked in the show notes, on how to build a wood gasifier. And wood gasifiers came onto my radar a long time ago. I think it was because, it was a No Agenda show. Adam started talking about wood gasifiers because he was just making his move to Hill Country, Texas, and he learned about a wood gasifier from someone. Not sure how, not sure when, I don't remember exactly, but I know he's the one who turned me on to it. Then, shortly after that, I was scrolling through iFunny, like I do sometimes, and I just started seeing loads and loads and loads of ads, not ads, but submissions of, I don't know if you could hear that, but my stomach just growled something fierce. I am hungry. But anyway, I started seeing loads and loads of uploads of what it takes to build a wood gasifier, what it can do for you, why it's so important in this world that we're living in today. And either iFunny is listening to my conversations or what I'm listening to because it's spyware from Russia. Technically it is, but either it's because of that or it's just because people who upload to iFunny also listen to No Agenda or something else. Because the posts that are on iFunny are strikingly similar to the posts that show up in No Agenda Social, and strikingly similar to the topics covered by the No Agenda show. So either the producers are one and the same or something. I'm not 100% sure what the overlap is, but it's noticeable if you start paying attention. Anyway, that is a you're welcome right there. Everyone who wants to know about wood gasifiers, check the show notes. You'll be able to see them. I'm not going to do any Podcasting 2.0 chapters on this today. You can just check the show notes. I don't have time for that. I have a lot more learning that I need to do, a lot more organizing of my life to do. I have a lot more plans that I need to get together. My son's birthday's coming up. I have to plan for that. I have a whole lot on my plate right now. So for now, no Podcasting 2.0 chapters. I apologize. I know I should be doing this better, but that's what it is. So I'm going to get into the next segment right here, and I made a little jingle for it. You ready? Here you go.
You know what really grinds my gears?
I got a grind my gears segment. You know what really grinds my gears? What grinds my gears is I can't stand hating on the changes in pop culture. This is one of the biggest reasons why I stopped listening to Steven Crowder, why I stopped listening to Ben Shapiro, while I stopped listening to anyone in that realm, Dan Bongino or anyone in that realm. I'm not going to even mention TC. But anyone in that realm, anyone who does this hating on pop culture and changes in it. And I'll give an example. I think everyone loses their minds when Disney releases anything similar to the Black Ariel controversy. The fact that they made Ariel black doesn't change how I'm going to put food on the table. It doesn't change how I'm going to live my life. Now, I'm saying that with a level of what is it? What is the word? There's a word for it. Condescension. I'm saying it with a level of being condescending. And I'm not trying to be condescending because I realized that it grinds my gears just recently when I decided to start falling into that last episode. I mentioned the drunken critic or whatever his name is, the dude who does reviews of movies and he's drunk about it. And he's drunk when he's doing it. That guy did a Black Ariel rant. And it started striking me. I'm thinking, Disney has the rights of that story. Disney has the rights to all of the Marvel superhero stories because they bought them. Now, does that mean anything about, does that mean that they're, here's what I'm going to say. It's factual, so it doesn't matter what you think. They have the right to change the story however they want, whether they care about their fan base or not. They have the right to change it however they want. Whether their decisions are misguided, whether their decisions alienate their entire fan base and lose them money, doesn't matter. It's still their decision to make and their error to make if it is an error. So to hate on it makes no earthly sense at all. Because whether it's something... Okay, if you're mad, I'm going to say about... Because I brought up the fact of gay Superman or bisexual Superman or whatever, super they. If you love Superman or super they so much that you hate the fact that Disney is destroying your beloved character, which is super they, you've got bad priorities. Your priorities need to change. And that's as simple as it needs to be. If you hate the fact that they're changing it, you can rant about it as much as you want. You can hate on it that much, but a writer will inevitably change a story that you heard when you were a kid simply because that's the nature of storytelling. It's a fool's errand to try and be mad about that. Because you'll never succeed in anything trying to be mad about that. That's my grinds my gears segment. I'll have more of those coming up because I'm really enjoying this old man grousing about things. So I have 2 more topics I need to cover before I end this podcast. It's going to be a shorter one today. Yay, everyone. You get to hear a shorter one today. And as for what next topics there are, here it is. Okay, so I got turned on to the Modern Wisdom podcast about like 3 or 4 years ago. And this was because I was really heavily into the Jordan B. Peterson podcast. I listened to nearly every single thing that Jordan Peterson had put out on the YouTubes. Almost everything. If there's almost not a video there's a few. There's almost not a video that I can see that was put out by his channel that you won't see has been in my YouTube search history or view history, whatever you want to call it. But I learned about the Modern Wisdom podcast because Jordan's daughter, Michaela, started putting little sound bites of who their ads were or who their sponsors were for that episode, and just whatever she thought was interesting to start making mention of in the beginning of a few of their episodes in the past. And in one of these episodes, she mentioned the Modern Wisdom podcast. And she said that, what was the guy's name? Dude's name, I'm subscribed to it, Chris Williamson, that he is a genius and underappreciated and a genius that you see these signs of genius, and she saw that he was a genius. So I thought, let's give it a listen. So I started listening, and the episodes that got me really, really just hooked were his efficiency, how to become more efficient in everything you possibly could in your life. And they're extreme proponents of Atomic Habits, and they got, I think, the Atomic Habits workbook or something. There's this little journal. I'll explain that in a second. I hate doing that noise. But there's some book that you can get on the Amazon that has, I don't know, some like habit tracker or something that changes people's lives, I guess. And I guess it's the way that it's structured and the way that it's written out helps you be way more effective and productive in the things that you do every day. But getting back to what I wanted to bring up about Chris Williamson and the Modern Wisdom podcast is I get the newsletter from the Modern Wisdom podcast. And I get that newsletter quite often. And in this newsletter, one of the things that I pulled out of this newsletter was a quote at the bottom, and it says this. I'll read it verbatim. It says, "Perfectionism is procrastination, masquerading as quality control." That's from the Modern Wisdom podcast. And then there's a quote at the bottom. "Male depression is nearly always a result of learned helplessness, but health providers treat it like female depression and try to make men feel loved instead of powerful." That's a quote from Adam Lane Smith. And that, I mean, good grief. I've gone through, I may have, bootleg diagnosed myself as having bipolar or something of that nature. And I'm starting to sound like a hypochondriac the way that I'm starting to give myself these diagnoses. But I go through bouts of depression every once in a while. It's not like crippling to any degree, but it's a form of depression. And I can say that with a fair bit of certainty and accuracy because I've seen people in my life go through bouts of depression. If anyone listened to the translation of the long talk that I had with my grandfather and my father, because that was all in Romanian, if anyone listened to that episode, you'd understand that there was a lot of loss in my family quite recently. Because I'm not very old, but there is a lot of loss in the family. Yeah. And during that, I was able to witness and see what true depression looks like just because of the people around me that were experiencing it. Because I was young. I didn't have really an understanding of what I was feeling. And plus, when you're a kid, you're resilient, you bounce back from things, but you can perceive what people are experiencing around you. And then now that I'm older and I've had my own share of loss and letdowns and things of this nature, I can see that there is a fair bit of comings and goings and waves of depression in my life. And because it's a regular occurrence, I can say that I struggle with ever so infrequent bouts of depression. And right here, this description, very simplistic, within, I think, 10 seconds, if I wanted to read it quick enough and succinctly enough, you could express the difference between male and female depression. You can explain how to solve it, what the cause of it is, everything in and it's right here in the first sentence. Male depression is nearly always a result of learned helplessness. And that's what it is. It's realizing that you're helpless and that you can't do anything by your own power to change the circumstances that you're in. And then right there at the bottom, it says that health providers treat it like female depression and try to men feel loved instead of powerful. Right there, it tells you that if all you change is you change the circumstances in the man's life to return a sense of having power over a situation, Now, this isn't some animalistic, I need power over things. It's more of, I need to know that there's something I can control in this world, and there's something that I haven't lost control over. That will help in certain situations, if not most, and I think we can make an argument for pretty much most situations. But for now, I'm just going to say, I think we can make an argument for every situation, but for now, we're going to say most situations. If you return the power to the man in the situation, or in that is dealing with depression in that given circumstance, you will see the depression start to subside, if not go away completely. Anyway, before I get into the last topic, I wanted to explain what the problem I have with the sound effect. My brother-in-law is extremely into shitcoinery, and he explained to me that there's a new Bitcoin coming out. It's the new Bitcoin. Why aren't you on the new Bitcoin? Don't you know about Bitcoin? Don't you know what it is? There's a new Bitcoin coming out, and it's so much better because Bitcoin is slow and expensive, and it doesn't work. And I'm over there just nodding and telling him you're wrong, and you don't know Bitcoin. You don't truly understand it. And he tells, I know what Bitcoin is. It's slow, and it's boring, and it doesn't work. And anyway, he sent me a video. And what was the video? Let me pull up the title for you so you can hear what I'm talking about. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Where is it? Here we are. He sent me a link to a YouTube video. It's called Pulse Bitcoin Day Zero. A new Bitcoin ? ASIC ATM and Pulse D or PLSD transformational something or other. It's got like 45 views. The video. The dude's got like 20 subscribers to his YouTube channel, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, decentralized, whatever. You can make an argument for, well, this guy's just this is one video that you could find on the topic, and it's just one guy, like he's trying to spread the gospel, whatever. But then you listen to what he has to say, and it has nothing to do with what makes Bitcoin what it is. It's got nothing to do with decentralization. It's got nothing to do with proof of work. It's got everything to do with proof of stake. It's got everything to do with another centralized currency that's just under the Pulse chain, Pulse X umbrella, making that another tool in the arsenal of the centralized thing that is Pulse X or Pulse Coin or whatever you want to call it. It's some other shit coin. And I got this thought that my brother-in-law is an idiot. But moving along, in that video, let me get back to the explanation. I need to give you some backstory, and I got ADD probably, or ADHD, or whatever you want to call it. In that video, and this is a problem that I had in my initial podcast when I first started podcasting, when I first started doing anything recording my own voice, whether that was a YouTube video or a podcast, I had the problem of either saying or way too often, almost to the point of someone saying the word like too often. And I got over that kind of effectively. I think I mentioned this in a podcast episode before and used a Podcasting 2.0 chapter art to explain what I use as a subliminal message to get rid of my uhs and ums, at least significantly reduce them. But then I had the issue of doing this noise before every sentence. And I'll just say a few sentences so you can understand what I'm talking about. And I'll get into the topic while I'm explaining what I hate about it. But what I would do is, before every sentence, I would smack my lips together like I was thinking hard about kissing someone. And what would happen was, and I got to slow down on this or it's going to become a habit again. What would happen was every single sentence would smack you in the face, like as if, like it was some nervous tick, like as if I had Tourette's or something. Not like I'm downing on anyone with Tourette's. I'm just explaining that's what it seemed like. And this dude has that same problem, and it was an unbearable 10 minutes to listen to this guy talk about something that I already didn't want to hear about. And then he's got this tick that he clearly does not care to change. So anyway, that's why I hate the noise that I made in the beginning of this episode, or somewhere through this. I'm sorry that you had to listen to all that, but that's something that I hate. So I have one more thing that I want to talk about. I had a thought experiment. Actually, two things. So I had a thought experiment that I put down into words on the voice notes app on my iPhone. And this thought experiment was population size, and how oh man, there's some hatred on population size out there, and it goes way too deep. It goes way too deep. This is deserving of an episode all on its own, where I can bring clips of from Mo Facts. I can bring clips from Hunting Hitler. I can bring clips from No Agenda. I can bring clips from YouTube articles, and I can bring YouTube videos and Wikipedia articles, and I can bring all sorts of things to this one thing and try and make a succinct message as to why population size is a myth and why it's being perpetuated by the they that everyone talks about when they say they want to kill us and they want to do this. It's the big they, because there's two different theys. There's the they that want more money and the they that want less people. And if you want more money, then you need less people to spend it. Well, actually, how am I explaining this? I'm a little bit wrong in the way I'm explaining it. There's two different theys. How does it go? There's the more people they, and the less people they. I'll say it that way. The more people they want more people because they see the utility in having a bigger workforce to provide more mules to do the things that you don't want to do. And then there's the they that just want more money, who say that we just need better people. So if we have less people, but they're better, then everyone can share in this pool of wealth while we'll still be at the top of things because we're the best they, and we just want better they in the world. I hope I'm making sense with this. But either way, the population size myth that we won't be, and I'm calling it a myth, and we can, if someone wants to debate me on this, I'll actually put my thoughts together on this and actually come with arguments to the table, but I'm just going to call it a myth for now and then assume that everyone else who's listening to this is of the same mindset and was reaching the same Schelling point as I am, where we understand that the story that they are telling us that there is a overpopulation going on is a myth. We're going to say that for now. So the myth that there's overpopulation is being perpetuated by them so that we can bring in all the excuses we need to further every other agenda other than what will actually be good for the planet, i.e., or for example, fake meat. Fake meat is only being sold to the world as it's the only reason why it's successful in its marketing is that they've pushed the idea so hard and made it so believable and so innocuous to just say we're overpopulated, so we can't sustain ourselves on the amount of food that we're providing or making in today's day and age. And it's because of irresponsible food practices, because there's no way to sustainably feed the entire world meat, which is a lie. A big lie. The big lie. Whatever you want to call it. It's a lie. And if you even talk to any farmer, you'll understand this. Even the dumb farmers, because there are dumb farmers, because there's dumb people, there's dumb farmers. Just because you're a farmer doesn't mean you're not dumb. I'm not being disrespectful to farmers. I respect the crap out of farmers. But there are some that are dumb, and we can just accept that and move on. Because as soon as you put anyone on a pedestal, there's no way that you could discredit anything they say, and everything they say is the gospel, and that's wrong. But anyway, they're dumb. There's some dumb ones. But even the dumb ones can explain to you that it's not hard to feed the whole world. On even just the practices we're doing today. How long that'll last is another story. But anyway, this overpopulation myth, it lends itself to so many fake commodities that are doing nothing but making a few select people more rich, because people will continue to perpetuate this lie because they're raised to believe it. And that raised to believe it is so ingrained. It's hard to believe how impressive this actually is, and how, oh man, there's so many thoughts that can come out of this. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at this. Screw it. I'm going to leave it at this. I'm going to make a whole episode on this specifically because I want to talk about this with a guest that I may or may not be bringing onto the show at some point in the future. Now, I mentioned that I was going to have a conversation with, or that I had a conversation with Texas Slim, and that his friend, whose name is David Bennett, came up here to Coeur d'Alene to have a meeting with me so we could just talk about the beef initiative and everything that we could get together with on that topic out here in the Pacific Northwest. So I just learned about David's podcast called Bitcoin